Morning, it's Hazel Jarvis and it's Art Online. It's a beautiful spring day. We are going to do a lovely loose floral involving tulips and a spray bottle. So let's go. Start by drawing in my glass vase, and I'm using a paper template, of course. And I'm also going to use a coloured pencil just to draw around the vase. And I position it slightly off center and about 2 inches from the bottom. And I'm going to use hot press paper because I happen to love the flowbacks you get and the sort of the water edges when you paint loose and fast. So we'll mark in the base of our vase and we'll mark in a water line. I'm going to go with roughly the same inverted triangle formula that we used last week. So with a yellow coloured pencil, I'm going to mark in where my first tulip is going to go. And it's so just so you can see where I'm going to just pencil in my flowers. Use a big brush like a number 6, and I want all my colours to be really clean and strong and beautiful. And I'll start with the furthest away one. It's going to be a lemon yellow. So number 40, I load up my brush and I paint a sort of a semicircle just at the base. So I'm going to paint with this kind of neon bright yellow, a semicircle at the base. Then I take my spritz bottle and I angle it away and I sort of spray once to kind of push that yellow up, and then I can take my brush and just lightly pull up the color into a rough tulip shape, a bit like the shape of a wine glass. For my next tulip, I'm going to make it sort of peachy, so I'm going to mix 43, my cadmium yellow, with a pink, sort of like a permanent rose, number 34. I paint in my semicircle and then I just give it a quick spritz, and you can see how the paint flows into the area that's wet. I want this one to be a dramatic purple, so I'm going to mix my permanent rose 34 with my ultramarine violet 38. I put in my sort of semicircle shape. That is such a beautiful color. I take my spritz bottle and I spritz from the back so that the water flows up. And then with your brush, you're just going to lightly stroke up some of those petals into the water. I now come to the star, the main focus, and I want this one to be open just because I think it's more dramatic. So I am going to take my lovely yellow color, my warm orange 43, or my warm yellow. I'm going to paint a circle, and then I'm going to spritz so that the water doesn't go everywhere. I just hold my hand as a shield. I spray in one direction, I spray behind in another, turn the page around, keep turning the page around. You now have the beginning of your beautiful open tulip. So you'll take some more color and you'll just gently push it into a roughly open shape. I want another open tulip just down here, and I'm going to do it in that same lovely peachy combination. So 34 plus 43, I'm going to paint a small circle. I'm going to take my spray bottle using my hand as a guide and turning the page around, I just spray out. Now, in all likelihood, it's going to be insanely wet, so I'm going to just pick up a little bit of that extra water. But you can see where this one is drying, where we're getting this lovely sort of flow back establishing itself and a beautiful edge. I want to go a tiny bit darker in the center so I get more pigment, but no more water, and I just float it in at the base here. I want a lovely yellowy green for the stem, so I mix up 52 and 40 and a lot of water, and I'm just going to paint in just a little bit of the stem. So we'll add a couple more stems, and it doesn't have to go exactly to the flower because all our leaves and stems are jammed in together. I'm going to dull this green down by adding a teeny bit of my periwinkle, 67, and that gives us more of a sort of dull and muted tulip leaf, and we're going to paint in our leaves. And I keep varying the colour of my leaves, so I might add in a little bit of indigo just to make them a tiny bit darker, or I might add in a little bit of the mint green number 50 again, just to sort of change the colour. And where it's at the centre of the flowers, I make them nice and dark because you've got lots of layers of flower, one on top of the other. Filling in inside the vase or inside the jar. So with your leaves, you're working sort of from the front to the back. And it's really nice to vary the colors, vary the shape. Maybe you have one as if it's turning over, and you can see a little bit of the back. Color on the leaves is still wet, and to encourage the flow back, I take a little bit of the lemon yellow number 40 and I just stroke it into some of the leaves too. So love adding the periwinkle or the lavender to get a sort of a silvery grey tulip leaf. Now I have 3 leaves here and they're all approximately the same width and approximately the same height. They're looking a bit like dragon's tails. So I'm going to add another flower peeking through, and I'm going to make this one just a little bit taller. Where I've got some gaps in the center, like here, I take a much smaller brush, like a number 2, and I go much darker. So I mix my indigo in with my sap green. So 67 and 53, and I just fill in just a couple of those spaces. So very, very typical of the tulip is the center. So make sure your flower is completely dry for this part. You'll mix up a little bit of black, number 20, with a tiny bit of, say, magenta 37. And you'll do these lozenge shapes. So for this one, I've got a little bit more of the magenta in the mix and a tiny bit less black. You can put in a background, you can put in a tabletop, you can do a shadow. There are lots of things to do. I often like to put in a shadow. With my very useful periwinkle pencil, I'm just going to mark in a tabletop. So I'm going to mix up a lot of very dilute grey, which is yellow ochre 44, French ultramarine 64, and my purple 38, and I add a lot of water to it. And then I start to come here on one side of the glass. If I look at this very critically, I decide that this is much too strong and too dominant, so I'm going to darken up the leaf over here. Which of course necessitates making another little adjustment here and there. And now my favourite bit, the anthers. Just make sure this is completely dry because you want them nice and crisp and strong. And a little bit of detail in here, get that lovely sort of curvy snail-like pattern. And for this one, we'll add white to the mix, and in go the anthers. So here you have a lovely fresh image of your tulips. You could go a lot further with this painting. You could put a background in, you could define the flowers more, you could add fine line marker, but I think I'm going to leave it here because what I wanted was to show you how to get a lovely loose look. So you now have a wonderful added tool to your repertoire. You've got the little spray bottle for creating beautiful loose flowers. I can't wait to see what you do.